Is that credits? Yes! Yes! We did it! Title card, that's just as good. Alright, oh my god. I am exhausted from that game. First things first, the bottom center of the screen says that we have beaten 119 games this year, and 441 since we started doing this in 2020. Those numbers are fucking really, really wrong. We've now beaten 120 games in 2023 and 442 since we started doing this in 2020. Are you serious with this song right now? Alright, I'm gonna turn it down because we gotta talk over it. Yes, we get it. It's an 80s-ish game. Got it. Alright, so yes, I have lots of thoughts on this game. Lots of thoughts. Let's start with the, surface stuff. The graphics clearly aren't AAA budget. It's got kind of a early PS4 vibe. And the voice acting is horrible. The story, whatever. I don't really... It doesn't matter, really. And I don't think anyone that cares about this game is going to care because of the story. The story is all over the place. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It's bonkers. It's whatever. It's just a vehicle for the gameplay anyway. The art and sound design, let's separate those two things. The visual design of the game is fine. It's not great, honestly. It's tries to be cyberpunk, and there's a lot of versions of cyberpunk that have come out just this year that are better than this. It's not horrible, but it's not notable. And the sound design is outright objectively bad. The sound mixing is really bad. There's a lot of times where the music just the background music in a scene that's just ambient background music is loud enough that it's hard to understand what the people are saying. That's bad sound mixing. And there's a lot of that. Where the music and the background noise is just way louder than what's happening in the cutscenes. In the gameplay itself, it seems fine, but in the cutscenes, it's bad. It's real bad. It's all this. So yeah, as far as like technical aspects, story, characters, voices, C-, D+. It's none of that stuff is great. As far as the actual gameplay goes, this is a strange beast because the controls are unique. The way that you can use your gun and your sword in combat it's unique. There's a lot going. There's a lot they've crammed into the buttons on the PlayStation controller, but it's messy. It's messy. It's awkward. It's not intuitive all the time. It's not horrible, but it's a little chaotic. The whole game really is quite chaotic. And so the gameplay is weird. It takes a little bit of getting used to. It's not intuitive, like I said. It's kind of all over the place. But the gameplay itself, at its core, is incredibly enjoyable. If you take all of that other stuff surrounding it and you tune that out and you just focus on the gameplay in this game, the gameplay is there. It's not only is it there, it's exceptional. I really got addicted to the actual gameplay once I was able to wrap my brain around it and understand the controls, and I started to get a little bit better at it. I was starting to really enjoy the grind, the loop that is this game of entering a room, fighting all the enemies until they die, managing my ammo, like very strictly, learning to do that, learning that was very important, and then moving on to the next room and doing the same thing. I started to really, from the very first level, I was really starting to enjoy that. And as the game went on, I only went to appreciate some of those aspects more and more. I got more and more frustrated as the game went on because it's extremely hard. We'll get to that in a second. But the actual gameplay loop, it is there. If you brush all the bullshit off of this game, all of the cutscenes, all of the story that doesn't make any sense, all the horrible voice acting, all of the extra crap, the karaoke mini games, you get all that out of the way. In that center, that warm, juicy center, is a beautiful game. It's really, really fun. And let's go ahead and talk about the difficulty. This is one of the hardest games I actually ever managed to beat. This is one of only a handful of games that I started to question whether I was good enough at video games to beat it. And I was playing on normal, which is the lowest difficulty. And I mean, this tested every fabric of my gamer being. I was able to beat it, but it really tested my patience. But therein lies one of the greatest things about this game. I would not go as far as to call this a tough but fair game, like something like Dark Souls 3, where every time you die, or like Eldest Souls, or one of those games where it's like every time you die, you know exactly why, you know where you messed up, and you gotta improve on that, and you learn a lesson every time you die. I wouldn't go as far as to call it that. It's really more like Demon Souls, where it's got some of that interwoven into its DNA, but it's also got some jank, and it's also got some unfair deaths, and it also has some unreasonable sections that are just unreasonably difficult, and you can tell the developers just want you to suffer. That's what it felt like. The biggest reason, the reason that it was so difficult, I think, at its core, is that there are checkpoints throughout the game, and they are much more sparse than checkpoints that you would expect to see in a modern game. This checkpoint system is a lot more like something you'd see in early PS2 days. In fact, this whole game has an early PS2 vibe to it. Very 2002 video game. I mean, this really, outside of the graphics, this is a PS2 video game. I mean, it's everything about it is very, very early 2000s. And one of the most notable ways that that's apparent is the checkpoint system. It is brutal. You'll get to a point, and it's a few levels into the game or whatever, where you've just fought 40 dudes, and none of them are easy to kill. And like kind of like Sifu style, like you're kind of one by one just getting through them. You've fought 40, and I'm not exaggerating, 40 people. And then you think, and then you round this corner and you're in a new room and you think, okay, this is where a checkpoint would be. This is where it would make sense to be. It's already been too long. There's got to be a checkpoint around this corner. And you round the corner, and not only is there not a checkpoint there are 10 more guys that are like beefed up, harder versions of the people you just killed. And then after you kill those guys, if you're lucky, if you haven't, let's be reasonable, you've already died 5 or 6 times at this point. This is your 5th or 6th time trying to kill those 10 dudes. Do you think, okay, I can't believe it. I finally got through this part. Oh my God. That took every ounce of my will to get to this point. Let's have that checkpoint, and you're around the corner, and it's 10 more fucking guys. I mean, just 10 more even harder guys. I'm not kidding. Like, it's just soul-crushing 30 minutes of just blood, sweat, and tears for you to get that next checkpoint. And if you... Well, 30 minutes is, let's say 20 to 25 at times, of you just fighting for your life. That you could be killed by any one of those guys. And that's and then finally you get, but then when you get that checkpoint, it's the best fucking feeling in the world, because you know you never have to do any of that stuff again. And this game gave me that feeling that a lot of games like Sifu, a lot of Souls-likes like Sekiro and Elden Ring have given me, where it's like, I fucking hated this game at points when I was starting to believe I couldn't do it, or I started to feel like it was wasting my time because I'm replaying sections over and over again. But then when I finally did get there, and it would often be because I realized that I was playing something about the game wrong, and I had to make some adjustments. That after this one enemy has killed me 15 times, I'm thinking, what am I not seeing? And I go back and I pore over my skill tree, and I'm like, oh, I can do this. I'm trying to keep the details out, but I can use this skill, or I can aim for that, or I can use this. I should be using this specific weapon. I had a lot of those moments, and then I would find a lot of times I would have that moment and I'd still die anyway and have to readjust again. And I'd realize I was wrong. But I would eventually, from time to time, I would hit on that. Oh, right. This is the way. This is the way I can do this. So that was incredibly gratifying. Incredibly gratifying. Another reason this game is incredibly hard is it's kind of intertwined with the checkpoint thing, but anytime you get to a checkpoint, you get a refill on your ammo and your health. You only have a certain number of heals, kind of like a Souls-like. And you get that re-upped as well as all of your ammo every time you get to a checkpoint. And there's not very many. There's, I don't know, 4 or 5 per level. And the levels take an hour and a half to beat a piece. Halfway through, you're halfway to the next checkpoint. So in other words, you're not even close, and you are just completely out of ammo. Now, you have a sidearm that has infinite ammo, but it's pretty worthless. It's not a reliable weapon, not really. And your melee is quite strong, but it's also high risk, because if you're getting in close with enemies, they are more likely to hit you more often. So the guns are every bullet is extremely valuable. There were many times that I'd be running around trying to kill some enemy that's killed me 10 times, and I still don't know where the checkpoint is after that person. And I'm running around with 4 bullets in my light machine gun, just thinking, okay, I gotta make sure I make these count. The game taught me to be very miserly, very cheap with my ammo, because to the point that I'm just dinking and dunking and cheesing enemies left and right as much as I can, because that's the only way to get through the levels, because you're gonna need that ammo for that next big enemy where you really need it. So like some of those regular enemies that at the beginning of the game I was using ammo left and right on, because it's hard to rely on melee in this game. It's hard to do that without getting hurt. So I'm using my ammo left and right. Well, pretty early the game taught me I can't do that. I need to save my ammo for the biggest, baddest, most hardcore enemies, and everybody else gets the sword. But I like resource management. It's one of the reasons I love survival horror games. So managing that was actually pretty fun for me. I can see how somebody would hate it, and that would be super frustrating. But I did ultimately very much enjoy it, although it was a very common point, a very frequent point of frustration for me. And so just a couple other things. We've talked about how incredibly difficult this game is, and I've illustrated that, I think, pretty well as I can. One thing I thought was a little underwhelming was the bosses. The bosses weren't bad, but they weren't that hard, except for the final boss. The final boss was pretty hard. But the other bosses, you get to a boss at the end of every level, and that would be compared to what I had gotten through in that level to get to that boss. The checkpoint's right in front of the boss. That's one thing they do. They are merciful with. If you die to a boss, you don't have to run through other enemies to get to the boss. It's right there. So by the time I've gotten to the boss, I'm already celebrating. I've already beaten the level because A, the bosses aren't that hard, and B, everything that came before them is 10, 15, 20 times harder. So the bosses were a little bit of a, they're a little bit of a little anticlimactic because the real challenge is getting to them. Once you get there, you're good. Even the final boss, I felt nothing but relief the whole time fighting him, even though he killed me 25 times or whatever. Because I was like, well, look, hey, I'm not losing 25 minutes of progress every time he kills me. I'm golden. I never have to do anything I did. And the last level was the hardest level. I never have to do any of that stuff again. Thank Christ. Let's just focus on this guy until we beat him. He could have killed me 50 more times and I would have been fine with it. Overall, I think that this game is notable because it's so arcadey. It's got some elements of roguelike, some elements of Souls-like, and some elements of some cover shooter stuff that make it interesting, but it's really its own thing. It's really more of just an arcadey, really brutal arcadey experience. I've never played the 3D Ninja Gaiden games. I'm going to at some point. They're on my list. I'm playing through those in order, but I've only played the first 2 Ninja Gaidens on NES. And that's the same developer, and I've heard that those games are brutally difficult. It might be like that. This might be a callback to those games. I don't know. But that does remind me of other things. This is a cover shooter. Like, cover is a big part of it. The cover system sucks. It's horrible. It sucks ass. It's really janky. It doesn't really make any sense. The way that cover works, you're popping in and out of cover without meaning to all the time. Well, I'll tell you that there's no button to go into cover. Most games like Gears of War, The Division, when you're taking cover, you hit X or circle to go into cover or whatever. This game, you're supposed to just walk next to the cover, and then it'll automatically take cover if you stop moving. So first of all, you have to stand there like an idiot for about half a second, getting shot at before you even go into cover. But then also, you can't shoot over cover. You can shoot around it if you're using one of your main guns, but you have a sidearm. I wanted to do one of these, like over cover. You can't do that. Every time you use your sidearm, you just pop out of cover. Just stand up like an idiot shooting your handgun. It's just the cover system is poor. They shouldn't have even really put it in there. It's just bad. So that's another thing, and that's in a nutshell, that's what this game is. And I've talked a long time about it, so I'm going to shut up in a second. But at summary, this game has a lot of moving pieces that are moving in the wrong direction. There's a lot wrong with this game, but at its core, this is an excellent game, very, very fun, and if you can put up with it, it's very, very rewarding if you can manage to get to the end. It is going to rank very high. I have a feeling that I'm going to rank it over like Sonic CD or something, and people are going to be pissed at me. If anyone, I don't know if that. Sometimes those videos get views and sometimes they don't. But like, but this is not. This is not a game that like was Game of the Year talk for this year, and it isn't for me either. I've definitely played games better than this year, but it's going to be maybe top 10 of the year. No. Well, what I mean by that is top 10 out of the games that I played that are from 2023. In order for it to be, it's only got to be like top 150 or something to be that. And I bet it makes it that high. It's going to rank really well. It really scratched a very similar itch to something like Sifu. It was brutal. Every enemy was brutal. Every enemy can kill you. But man, by the end of this game, I was really fucking good at it. This game taught me over the course of the 10 hours that it took to beat it. It's short. Out of the 10 hours it took to beat it, it really taught me to play it. I want to play Wanted Dead 2 now. And I'll be better at it. Alright. Well, I've spoken enough. I really, really, really liked this game. I'm going to remember this game for a long time. Wanted Dead, Last Order of Business. I'm really glad I decided to play you. I almost didn't. I'm glad I did. But we are now going to delete you from our console and never play you again. Bye! Bye-bye!